Welcome to day 2 of InventionCon 2021. My name is Sean Wilkerson, Innovation Outreach Program Manager in the Office of Innovation Outreach here at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I'll be your MC for today's program as we hear from experts and inventors who are ready to share their knowledge with you. During today's program, we will be accepting questions by email at inventioncon@uspto.gov. We'll do our best to get to all of your questions at the end of each panel to help you become successful and provide you with the information you need. If for any reason you get disconnected, you can log back into the program at any time using the live stream link that brought you here. If you miss a portion of today's program, don't worry. We will be posting presentations online in just a few weeks for you to review information and re-engage with our speakers. Now, to begin the program, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing remarks from Andrew Fail, Acting Commissioner of Patents here at USPTO.
Hello to everyone attending this year's InventionCon 2021. I'm Andy Fail, Acting Commissioner for Patents at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. It's great to have all of you here virtually, though I must say I'm looking forward to when we can return to hosting this particular event in person. As Acting Commissioner, I oversee a staff of approximately 10,000 highly skilled individuals who process and examine about 600,000 patent applications every year. Those applications are in every area of technology and industry, from computers, semiconductors, high-speed networks, gaming, electronic cars, new sporting gear, video games, and drugs and treatments for diseases like COVID-19. Today, you are living in an era of constant innovation and technology improvement. Just think of the hardware and software that goes into your smartphone. There are an estimated 250,000 active patents that are being used to make that one device do all the things you ask it to do. In addition, this is true of many things. There are inventions being made in every area of commerce. We see these inventions in every aspect of our lives, from mountain bikes to drones, robots, electric batteries, into outer limits of space travel. All of these were invented by people like you who are imaginative, curious, and hardworking individuals. Your being part of the InventionCon 2021 means that you have tackled one of the biggest challenges involved in innovation, which is taking the initiative. If you have an idea for a new product or a way to improve an existing one, go for it. And just as the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office provides personal help to hundreds of thousands of people every year to protect their inventions, we're here today to help you. Thank you, and I hope you continue to be inspired to invent and improve our future.
Thank you, Andrew, for being part of InventionCon and providing us with more information about patents and the patent life things we do here at USPTO. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker who holds 12 patents, Serene Al-Momen, PhD, co-founder and CEO of Senseware. Serene, if you can turn on your camera and microphone, I'll turn the program over to you.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. I am so happy and honored to be here today and be the keynote speaker for this amazing conference. My name is Serene Al-Momen, and I am excited to share with you the journey that I have been through to realize a dream that I had, and share some of the lessons that I had throughout this journey in the hopes that it could inspire you to go for what you believe in. So let's take just a step back and go back in memory lane. I am from Saudi Arabia. I moved to the US when I was 17 to get my undergrad education. I went to Oklahoma State University to study computer science. Weather-wise, it was really close to where I came from, very hot and very cold. So that was a nice transition. But then continued with my grad because I got some scholarships and did my master's at Johns Hopkins and my PhD at George Mason University. And towards the end of my PhD is when I was able to start to realize a dream that I had since childhood. So a little bit about that dream. This is a picture of me in Saudi Arabia with 4 of my siblings that I grew up with. You see in this picture a couple of my, 2 of my brothers. Around the time I was a teenager, 14, 15, my brothers signed up for this karate class, and they were telling me about it, and I was so intrigued by it. I felt that it was so exciting to learn this new sport. It's amazing. I wish I could do that, but unfortunately there was no classes for girls. And that made me sad and a little bit angry, but that a fire lit inside me, and I would go to bed every night and just fantasize about a day where I could start my own thing and show the world that I could do more than they tell me I could do. And kept thinking about that, and day after day, night after night, and praying that somehow I find a path to get there. And I did, and that was when after I moved to the U.S. Just like I said, around the time I was finishing up my PhD, and the reason I was able to get there is that I held on to that dream, despite what people were saying I could do and not do. I actually had this notebook with me here as I was going through college, that I would jot down all of the ideas that I had for this business that I'll show the world that I can start and do well at. And it's really, one of the things I reflect on always is remembering those childhood dreams. We're always, our family ask us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I feel that the answers we give when we're kids to that question are unfiltered, pure, and has some truth to what we know and believe about ourselves and what we can do. And I just encourage everyone to think about those answers and lean into them, because for me, it turned into something great. So fast forward, I am doing my PhD. I'm in Portugal, presenting at a conference, a healthcare conference there. It was my last conference before graduating. This was in 2012. And I attend this session with now my co-founder and my partner in the business, Julian Stamatakis. And he was talking about his work around using accelerometers to better assess Parkinson's disease patient severity levels, because the sensor would pick up on things that, and movements, acceleration movements that the doctor's naked eye couldn't and can't, and wanted to enhance that whole process. And as he was looking at the data, he realized that another type of sensor, a gyroscope, would be great to add to the mix. But it was too late for him to add that additional sensor, because that meant he had to redevelop the technology from scratch to accept this new data set. And if any of you are doing your PhD or done their PhD, there are times where you just want to be done. And he just wanted to be done. So continued with this one sensor data technology, and graduated with that and did his research around that. But I met with him right after that session, and we talked about this constraint that he was mentioning, and it was a light bulb, an aha moment that sparked, and we thought about this idea of, what if we create a technology where we're able to connect any sensor at any time and bring that additional data set to the mix to do amazing thing with it. enhancing the assessment and whatnot, without having to redevelop the core of the technology. We also knew that the sensor technology were starting to be improved very rapidly. So we knew that there will be in future sensors that may be great to add to the mix. And we wanted to really felt that this idea of adding any sensor at any time, even future one, would be the future of the sensor technology and that whole space. And so I love the idea so much. I married the guy and we went ahead and started in our basement. Julian's from Belgium. He moved to the US, and we actually built this table that you see here because we needed a table big enough to hold a soldering station, a 3D printer, and all the screens, and this vintage radio that Julian liked to turn on to get in the mood and do great things. And Julian focused on doing a lot of the sensor and hardware side of things. And given my background in software, I was kind of architecting the software side and the data processing side of things. And we worked on this for months and created a first prototype that we were super excited about. And it was time for us to go and test it in the market. So we went out there, we signed up for every pitch competition that you can think of, any demo days, anything like that. And talked about our technology and the story. We talked to hospitals, to doctors. We applied to NIH grant, and we quickly realized that there was just so much red tape in the healthcare space that was just standing in our way for that commercialization stage of our idea. And we did what every entrepreneur does, it's not give up. And we thought about it and we said, well, the whole idea is to connect to any sensor. So we changed our pitch and started to talk about the technology more generically as a way to connect any type of sensor that's out there and get real-time data from that sensor to create amazing solutions and applications and analytics that are not available today. And as we did that, we started to actually attract a lot of professionals and people in the built environment ecosystem. So building owners, building engineers, building operators, the equipment manufacturers of building, construction professionals that came to us and said, this is interesting. Can you connect to all the data from this built environment and everything around it? And we said, well, it can connect to any type of sensor or equipment that has an output. So yes, we can. And that was another kind of lesson in the journey, is that it's really important to go where the market takes you, because you may start your idea and think that about one specific application, but if you want to grow a business, you need to create revenue, and that's the market tells you where that is. And we're glad that we made that shift in pitching and attracted the right type of customer. And so our mission changed to be more around helping people gain a sense of security, that they are aware of what's happening in their physical environment. So around us, where we live and work and play, we're able to have visibility in real time for health and wellness, for efficiencies, and real-time proactive improvements. And we leaned more into that based on the feedback, and started to develop capabilities to connect to all aspects of the physical environment, from energy to air quality to equipment status, and all in one system, and very quickly as our customers talked about new application, a new sensor, we plug that in and add that to the mix to provide more and more real-time visibility from the physical environment. And we went out with that, we leaned into that, and we had this historic moment in the journey of the company, where just a day before my son here, Jude, was born, we signed our first contract and our first customer. So a day before, Julian is out there scoping a site, installing our technology. Next day, we have our baby, and the day after, we're back to work. And that's just the hustle that entrepreneurs go through. Nothing, slows you down when you're excited and passionate about something. You just find a way to keep going no matter what. And that was, that happened at very early stage of the business. And at that point, we had two big questions. We landed a client, we figured out what is the right market. Great, we're out there, we're installing things. How do we do more of that? We are both engineers, didn't know how to do sales, marketing, finance, all of that. So that was a question. And also at the same time, we had a question around protecting our IP, and we knew that we have an innovative technology and whatnot. So how we approached this, given the fact that we didn't have money at the beginning, Julian was working full-time, but I left my job to focus on this business full-time, is that we decided we just go out there and network and build our advisory board. So look for people that have the experience that we don't have, and you use them to help us build the business without having to kind of pay for that experience. And that worked really well for us. So we, I would go out there and ask people, who is the best salesperson that you know? Who is the best marketer that you know? And I would just approach them and tell them, pitch them about our company, how exciting it is, and attract them to come and join us. And that worked really well for us, and they helped us build the building blocks that launched our company into the next stage of growth. And the same thing throughout that process, we found an advisor that has a very strong technology background, and we asked him about our IP and protecting our IP. And so the first thing that we were advised to do is immediately file a provisional patent for the universal sensor interface, which is what we call that, the core of our innovation. And Julian and I, just because we did our PhD, we were comfortable kind of writing the provisional patent. So we did that. And then the clock started, we had 12 months to figure out how to actually do a full patent and what else. So that advisor introduced us to his good friend who was a patent attorney. And we met with him at Panera and talked to him about our technology. He was very excited, felt that it's so innovative, and decided that he would help us. And we started with just transitioning that provisional patent to a full patent, and then 1 patent to 7 patents, from 7 to 20, and so on and so forth. And as of last week, we had 40 patents awarded on our technology, which was amazing. It's validating, it's unique, and it was just a great result of our commitment to protecting our IP. When we first started, we would tell people about our technology, how we can connect the physical environment to the web. So they would come to us and say, oh, so you're an Internet of Things company. and we didn't even know what that phrase meant. And we would go online and Google Internet of Things. What is that? And we did that, and we would read all of these articles around how this is the fourth wave of technology, the future, connecting the physical environment to the web, everything is connected. And so we realized at the very beginning that our technology could be a key enabler in this new wave of technology that's coming up in the future. So we made the decision to really commit to protecting that IP at the very early stages. And it could be hard because at that early stage is where you don't really have a lot of money to actually file patents and whatnot, but it is the time to actually protect it because you want to do it before it becomes, out there in the market and whatnot. So you have that advantage. And we just found a way, through the networking, through saying, just to committing to ourselves to protect that IP. We did that, and that's why we have all these patents. Now, when the market is there, people know more about Internet of Things. If we started now, it would have been too late. So that was great, and something that definitely worked really well for us. So at this point, our company is humming, it's growing, we're in the right market, we're selling, very exciting. And then COVID hits. And I remember it was mid-March 2020 last year. And I get a call from my son's school saying, well, send the kids back and they cannot come in person for the next 2 weeks. And by then, hopefully everything is going to be fine. And I started to feel that this is serious. This is not what, we're used to. It's something new. I started to get calls from from deals that we were working on that they said we're going to put them on hold. My investors are calling me, telling me about other portfolio companies that are really having a hard time. And it was just a very stressful time because it was not something we would ever prepare for, anticipate, know what to do. It's just new. And there's just so much chatter and so much stress that's out there everywhere in the news, with friends, with family. And I just, at that point, going back to being an entrepreneur and just trying to figure out a way and put my head down and just block the noise and thought about what is it that I feel that we have to do, feel really good about. And as I was listening to people in the news and scientists and researchers, everybody was talking about the fact that the most concerning mode of transmission is airborne. And, air quality is important to improve, and especially in indoor spaces, to reduce the risk of transmission. And it hit me, and I was thinking, well, we have been getting real-time data from air quality sensors like CO2, particulate matter, temperature and humidity, volatile organic compound for years now. These are all good sensors that we could apply in the context of knowing how healthy the air we breathe, and knowing what are the issues that are out there, that are there in the air that we're breathing, to fix and improve, so that we can create a healthier environment for us to return back to indoor spaces. And we didn't stop. So I just started to think this is what we need to focus on. But we also had this innovation around connecting to any sensor that's out there. And so moving down that chain of thought, I said, okay, well, we worked on all of these sensors in the past. but now we're in a new environment. What are the new sensors that are out there that we can also innovate and use our technology to connect to and bring additional really important data out the air? So the first thought was, oh, well, the contaminants in the air, the bioparticles in the air, viruses, is there a sensor around that? Can we actually detect the pathogen, the COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 pathogen in the air as well? Is there a sensor? So we started to also think in that fashion because our technology is able to connect to future sensors. And we found few sensors that are able to connect to detect contaminants in the air, bioparticles, and COVID-19 specifically, and we integrated with those as well, and then took that to market and pushed that into market. We did this all hands meeting in the company, and I said, it is it's a subset of everything that we could do, but this is what the market needs, and we are also able to innovate. And I feel that this is the direction we need to move into right now. And we did, and it was a really difficult thing because you would never know when you make a bold decision like that, but it paid off as we talked about our abilities to monitor how healthy the air we breathe and also connect to COVID-19 sensors and whatnot. I started to get calls from news channels all over the nation, from Bloomberg to CNBC to Fox, asking me to tell them more about the technology and how that can be applied in schools and offices to restore confidence, to let us know what are the vulnerabilities there so that we can invest in the right areas and in the right technologies. And it just blew up, and we had Forbes write about us, the Washington Post write about our technology, and it was great. And so at that moment, looking back at it, it was really great to not get attached to what your technology could do. A lot of us create this innovations that are able to do so many things. And we know the potential of our technologies and want to apply all of these potentials of our technology, and feel really bad about just using a piece of it. But sometimes that's what it takes. And so it was really great to be flexible in that fashion and do what's right and apply the technology in the right place and in the right way. And that was really great. As we did that, we attracted a lot of customers. We saw skyrocket growth. The last bar here on the right is our sales in 2020 compared to 2019. So we're here super excited about everything all the decisions we made. It's paying off. Our investors are happy. We raised Series A during COVID, which was really hard for a lot of companies to do. So a lot of excitement, and it was really an amazing moment when we specifically won the DC public school contract to monitor air quality in all of the nation capital school, to give confidence to teachers and parents and kids, staff, that we're monitoring what you're breathing in schools, to allow for in-person learning. That's really important for kids, and that they know if something is wrong, they know in real time and they can address it. And that was just so validating and a great use case personally for me. Was really happy to participate in returning kids to school and solutions around that. And other schools followed, which was exciting. Then other markets followed. It started to get into the hospitality space, especially after winning a contract with this 5-star hotel to monitor their restaurant, because they wanted to show that indoor dining, with all the things that they're doing from filtration and ventilation, is actually making the indoor space, indoor dining, similar to outdoors, to bring more people in and help them restore their business. And that was great to participate in that use case. And then we attracted also one of the largest building technology companies like Siemens to want to partner with us and help them with return to work with confidence and programs like that. So, you know, what it seemed like a simple decision just made a big difference, made our business grow even faster and be more successful. So this is, you know, a lesson that, you know, is just re-emphasize. We always hear this: trust your gut. It's simple, but it does take a lot of courage. And but you know what you need to do, and I knew it in my heart and moved in that direction, and I'm glad we did. And I'll just end with kind of a summary of all of the lessons from this journey, for being, you know, the first time CEO, coming to new country and environment, and, you know, just going through all of the ups and downs of the business. And I realized that, you know, it's really the answer. The answer is simple. How do you become successful? This is what we have on our wall, actually in our office. Find a way, do it right, and get it done. And if you apply that in the sales and marketing and technology, it just it helps really move the company in the right direction, and it certainly did for us. So we live by these principles every day, and that's what I'd leave you with, and hopefully it will be something you can also benefit from. And again, I'm really happy. I hope this is helpful. You can find more information about the work we're doing at Senseware.co or on our LinkedIn, which is up here. I'm happy to take questions at this time. I think they will be all in chat. So I'll move to questions right now and see what we have. So let's see if I can.
If you're not able to find them, I can read them to you.
Okay, I actually found them. Okay, cool. All right, so what was the first question? What was your biggest fear in developing your idea before you applied for a patent? My biggest fear was, if I take this technology to market and it becomes visible, so outside of the basement, I was very worried that people would copy the idea before I can make something out of it. And that's really what led me to think about, okay, how do I protect it? And, you know, patents and the provisional, etc. So I would say that was the biggest thing. I think second to that is just, you know, figuring out a way to make it real and finance it and all that stuff. That was a big kind of challenge to figure out, because it does take a lot of resources to get something to market. Okay. Second
Serene,
question.
really quickly,
Yeah.
Serene, you can stop sharing so the audience can see your entire video.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's good. Okay. Second question. How difficult was it to adjust your product to detect COVID, and what was the market response to your product? Being able to connect to the sensors that can detect COVID was actually very easy. And it's a result of actually the core innovation of our technology, which is the universal sensor interface. That ability to just plug in any sensor helped us get that to market very quickly. So when we found the sensor company that was able to do that, all we had to ask is, what's the output from your sensor? And we have what we call this bridge component in our technology. And we basically found the bridge that talks that output, the same output as the sensor. And all we had to do is just plug the two together and, start to get that. So really, it was just an application of the innovation that we had and how we felt about our technology. We wanted it to be future proof, and it was exactly what we did. And the response was great. As I mentioned, everyone really wanted to hear more about it. That's why we had all of these interviews, and then these clients and whatnot that wanted to try it out. And next question: how did your success affect your business model? Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so yeah, our business model changed a couple of times, or a few times. When we first started, we had the hardware component was a big piece, which is the connection to the sensors. So we wanted to do more of a one-time model, but then we realized that really the value that we're bringing is the real-time visibility in the cloud, and that's a service that we're providing our clients. So then we added the service component, and which is more of a subscription, because that's the value we're bringing. So we kind of went through that thought process of figuring out what is really the value we're bringing to the table, and kind of pricing and changing our business model to fit that. So we did that, and then we iterated through that process, and got to where we would bundle everything, the hardware and software, and also provide an option for hybrid. And in this way, we were able to address a lot of the different needs of the market in terms of how to price things. So that was a journey for sure. What is one thing you wish you'd known before you filed your first patent application? Let's see. Okay, here's one thing. So one thing we didn't know is that any marketing materials that you're putting out there could be, used as kind of prior art and whatnot, and start the clock of the technology being out in the public eye. And so we didn't know that. And so we wanted to generate revenue. So we would go to events and have marketing materials that people take around our technology. So when we met with the patent officer, although we had the provisional patent filed at that time, he said we shouldn't wait until 12 months to file the full patent. Let's do it as soon as possible. So we did it, I think, 3 or 4 months before, just because we had a lot of public material around our technology and our innovation out there. So that's, I think, one thing maybe we could have been more careful about before filing. Okay, next question. What do you think the future of the workplace looks like? I really think, and this is something we're seeing also with all of the ESG guidelines, the environmental governance and social guidelines. Under the social guidelines, there is health and wellness. And we're reading a lot of literature around the fact that 3/4 of the workforce will be millennials, and that 80% of those will care about health and wellness and air quality and the air they breathe and the places they work. So I really believe that from an ESG reporting and responsibilities, and also just the type of workforce that is gonna, be out there, is that we need to care about health and wellness. We need to have visibility around that, and that's how you really encourage people to come back and work in those in offices. Okay, next, hiring an IP attorney can be expensive. You mentioned there was a lack of financial resources when you first started, but you did hire patent attorney. Any suggestion on how to obtain great patent attorney when you are on a budget? So we had a very special circumstances. This our patent attorney was able to do a deal where it's a combination of equity and cash payments. So that worked really well for us. And actually today, I didn't even know that that's an option, but it's not uncommon for attorneys, and including patent attorneys, to do a structure like that for startups, at the early stages. So just ask about that is my advice, and see if that's possible. With regard to the patent application process, what suggestion do you have for potential applicants, especially on how the application proposal should be prepared? I think so. I don't have a lot of experience on that side of things, but the way we did it, and I don't know if this is the way to do it, is that provisional patents are great protection. In the beginning, they don't cost a lot. So I would say at least start with that. Do as many as you can. It takes a little bit of writing skills, but we actually, I think, hired a technical writer to just review our work. And so we did it kind of in that fashion. So kind of broke it up to, start somewhere that's less expensive, and then take the time to figure out what's the next step and how to transition. Another question, after receiving your US patent, did you pursue patents from other countries? What were the considerations? It's a really good question. At the very beginning, we had to decide whether we want this to be an international patent or just US patent. And we decided just to go the US route for cost reasons. It was gonna cost us a lot more. And we felt like the US market is big enough and all that. And so we focused on the US. So it was really an economic decision. Another question, do you always think you'd be an inventor? No, I don't think so. I just always had ideas. I think that's that's more what it was. And our patent attorney always tells us that inventors are the first to tell you that, oh, the idea is not that, not that special, not that great. And I think we had a little bit of that. So that's why it's important to talk to patent attorneys that are experienced, that can tell you, oh, this is really amazing. And that's what happened to us, and we believed it and it paid off. So that was our journey. You were talking about a lack of women in science. Are you working as a role model for young women who want to follow a path like yours, and are you open to be a mentor? I'm definitely open to be a mentor. This is actually my passion, and I think is my long-term goal, is to do more to encourage and inspire other women to pursue their entrepreneurship paths, and also specifically in science and technology. So I'm always happy to talk to people about that and participate as mentor advisor whenever there's a need and opportunity. Okay, next question. What setbacks did you have, and what mental skills does an entrepreneur need to develop in order to overcome setbacks? There are lots of setbacks. You know, in the day of an entrepreneur, you could feel like you're gonna conquer the world, and the next minute you feel like, oh, what did I just do? I'm gonna bankrupt the business. I think that's just what happens in the entrepreneurial journey. And it's amazing question about the mental skills, because I feel like that's not talked about much, but it's such a key component. So you have a lot of talks around how do you raise money and how do you build the team, and you know, and all of these things, but I feel that there's not a lot of advice around how do you increase your mental stamina, because at the end of the day, you know, as a leader of the organization, you need to make sure that you're highly performing under stress, and that takes a lot of work. So for me personally, a lot of the things that worked include journaling, working out, breath work, doing obviously therapy as well is really important, and then also being around other similar entrepreneurs, so peer groups. So I have this monthly peer group meeting with other CEOs, and it's so helpful to just hear others also go through ups and downs, because it just makes you feel like you're not alone, and that gives me, at least personally, a lot of energy. But that's one tip. How did you manage your increase in business during COVID, with having to work virtually and find staff and resources to keep up with the work? You know, I wasn't sure it's gonna work, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, you hire good people that are professional and responsible, and you just trust that they're gonna do what they need to do and do their job. And that's what happened to us. We immediately went virtual. This sales team did their thing and moved everything to web conferences with meeting with people and prospects, and same with marketing, and all of us just, you know, adapted and were professional, and that's I think is the key. And resources, that was interesting, because we did grow our team, and we had to interview virtually and then hire and not even see the people in person, and that was a little bit of a unique thing for us. And you know, we just made it work. We did the virtual interview. We didn't cut corners in our process, doing assessment tasks, you know, for each role, and doing reference calls. So we did everything, and we just did it virtually, and you know, just stuck to that we know worked well for us in the past, and it works for us now too. What advice do you have for a young person that wants to be an entrepreneur? Go for it. I think that's the main thing, is to believe in your dream and your desire to start your own thing. And when you have that idea that like for us, we felt that this is it. You just feel it in your bones. You just go for it and find a way. I think, you know, not to think too much about it and just do it. All right, another question. How is it working with your partner? It's really great. First, it's really important for your co-founder and your partner to have a high trust relationship. So from that point of view, that box was checked. So it made it really easy for us to go through the ups and downs just because we trust each other. The other thing that worked really well for us is to have a very clear division of roles and responsibilities. So although I am also technical and engineer by background, we decided at early on that Julian will be the one responsible in having the final decision on everything technical, and I'm on the business side. So sales, marketing, strategy, and whatnot, that's my lane. And we just stuck to those lanes and respected them, and that made it work really well. All right, next question. Are there any resources you would recommend or that help you along the way? You mentioned a group of CEOs. Are there other groups you belong to? I have few books that I read that helped. There's for me, you know, I needed to fill the gaps in areas that I was not experienced in, like sales. So there's a book called Predictable Revenue that is really great. I recommend for anyone that's trying to figure out how to do sales. And that was really nice cookbook type book that helped. The other thing that another resource that I use is like I said, our the advisory board. So networking is really great. We also joined an accelerator at the beginning that helped also get us in front of great people, great mentors and advisors. So that's something that we were really happy that we did. We also got introduced to investors and whatnot. So that's another resource that's or a path that could be really helpful. Yeah, I think those are a few things, but happy to connect, you know, later and give you a little bit more details on that. Find me on LinkedIn. What are you most excited about right now? I am really excited about how we are participating in the future of the physical environment and how that's managed, how we live there, you know, by, you know, air quality monitoring, but also going back to monitoring things like energy and helping conserve that, and you know, creating healthier, safer, efficient environments. And I just feel very excited that we develop technology that can be part of that new future. Next question. Do you approach challenges differently as a PhD and as an entrepreneur, or any they're complementary in your opinion? Very much. I love this question. I think what I learned, the skill set in my PhD, which is just be innovative. If there's nothing, no solution out there, you create one. I think that worked really well as I built the company, because each company, just like us people, we're very different. They, you know, you could get advice about what to do based on someone else's experience, but every company has their its own personality, if you will, and own challenges and whatnot. So you're always, regardless of what you read and what you hear, there's always something new. And so the PhD mentality, where you research and find a way and be innovative, it just came so handy in our case.
Well, Serene, we are at the end of our hour. That was a very informative session, and the questions are still coming in, but I do have to bring it to an end. So I would like to ask you in closing, what are any tips or advice you would like to share, or any last comments that you would like to put out there for anybody who's going through this process?
I think, it's always to talk to other entrepreneurs. It really helps get some advice. So get advice. We have advisors. I keep talking about them because I think without them, we wouldn't have been where we're at. Take care of your mental health. I love that question. It's so critical. Find a way that works for you to help you restore energy. And then just go for it and find a way.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Serene, for sharing your story and your experience. You are truly an inspiration, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you.